I think, yes, the main value now, I think, is, whether it's somebody taking minutes in a meeting or chairing a meeting. They may be quite a shy person normally who's stepping up and facilitating in one way or another, maybe facilitating a workshop idea that they came up with or somebody else came up with, and they've developed skills of interpreting other people's ideas or building upon each other's ideas. And it might be at a working retreat where we spend a long weekend together co-creating our own program for doing all kinds of games and cooking together, but also delving deep into some questions in the project, like what the fuck is this project, is quite a popular one often. Where I think we always get a bit more of a tangible answer, but also realize hopefully a bit more deeply that it will never be a completely clear answer, because the project refuses a definition that is totally concrete. And I will leave the project as soon as it ever does have a totally concrete definition, because in my opinion, that is against the purpose of the project. It needs to always be able to change. As new people come into it, it needs to be totally open to the aims shifting a little bit. The strategy will change a little bit. It will turn a little bit from focusing a lot on filmmaking to focusing more on building structures for participation in the streets, and then it will become more of a research project. It just will keep changing, and in that sense, if you do find a description for Change the Future as a whole, it's going to be one that's going to have to be vague and loose enough to fit in each of these people who are very different and their projects, their initiatives inside Change the Future, that together we turn from loose ideas to more clear strategies, and then we action them together. So I think my favourite at the moment, kind of description for Change the Future is that it's a project incubation community.
Okay. It's quite a neat description, really, considering the breadth of what you do. How do people tend to get involved with Change the Future? Is it sort of getting involved in particular communities that have stuff live, or do people individually sort of elect to become involved?
So it's incredibly open. I mean, every strategy meeting that we have and all of our stuff ever is all totally online. So quite often it will be kind of word of mouth, or literally just even seeing a strategy meeting pop up on Google Hangouts on air. And then for the less geeky people, it will be, if we've, like a guy called Richard, who's an older chap living in Brighton, who's kind of notorious for having gone to, I think, more or less every single city consultation, like city council planning consultation over the last decade and a half or something. So he's got an encyclopedia of local knowledge. And yeah, he'll just chat on the phone or in person to people more. So the way it gets passed around is very different from one person to the next, and I think that's really cool. But in terms of actually getting involved in more core stuff, we have 4 levels of involvement in the project, and we don't have a clear enough sort of process for stepping up, I don't think. I'll show you this link here. Can you see the little chat section?
Yeah.
Is it this side, I think, for you?
Yeah, I've got the fellow.
Yeah, on my screen, I point and it's on this side, but I think for you it's that side. Anyway, but that kind of visualizes who's involved in the project. You'll see 4 lists in there. I'm a supporter, I'm a junior member, I am a senior member, and I am core team. And in between those levels of experience of membership, you'll see the kind of milestones required to step up to the next level.
Mm-hmm. It's really interesting. So is the Wall of Ideas, for instance, that a regular tool which you use to engage groups that you're working with on sort of different projects that you might be doing?
Yeah, so I didn't hear the whole question there, but did you say, is it for engaging the community on our project?
Is it a regular tool that you use on different projects, like a Change the Future tool, so to speak?
I think it would be if one or two people would step forward more to lead it. But as it is, I personally have not been especially involved in all of ideas stuff right now because I'm concentrating a lot on relationships with other successful projects like Represent and stuff like this, and kind of doing weekly events, like making sure our strategy meetings happen and our working retreats, which I'm really interested in, and things like this, and kind of developing resources and strategies on how to collaborate with other projects. Partly why I'm interested in chatting to you, because I just think so often we bump into like-minded projects but don't really know how exactly to interact with each other. And I think it's okay to say that. It's okay to sort of be confused. And I suspect it's worth staying with that feeling for a little bit and having the patience to kind of explore it with somebody, who's in a similar position, because there probably are ways that just aren't immediately obvious.
Mm. I'm just going to have to blow my nose quickly. Excuse me. Yeah, it's remarkable how much common ground there is between everything that you're describing and the kind of stuff that goes on within Learn to Lead. Because we're kind of
like 25, 30 seconds.
Say that again?
I've lost the last 30 seconds.
Okay. So, I was just saying it's remarkable the crossover with all of the stuff that goes on within Learn to Lead, because it's a similar approach. We're entirely non-prescriptive, and we're essentially, although it's not an adequate way to describe what we do, we are basically a training organisation that we don't tell people what to do or what the skills and things that we impart should be used for. We just give them the means by which to reflect on their community and work together in a way that's normally quite novel to different communities. Because we've kind of developed very much in a grassroots fashion, which started at my secondary school. It was just a very kind of exploratory guise to begin with, and out of that evolved what became the initial pilot Learn to Lead community, that then became a community interest company and started spreading out to other schools via sort of word of mouth. And then it carried on developing as challenges came up, and then we made tools to respond to that and this kind of thing. So everything has been co-produced along the way.
Yes, feels like the format and strategy of it is kind of like just a natural, ever-evolving byproduct of your learning process.
Yeah, and within the company structure as well, within the board of directors is always made up of at least half of the board and young people who've been involved with the scheme in some way, whether they were part of the community at their school or whether they've come into contact with it at some point. Can you still hear me, sir? I think you frozen.
Matt, so 20 seconds. I heard you say the board of directors it is.
At least half of the board of directors are young people normally, and so that means that it's kind of, and this kind of works informally. We don't have an identified structure whereby people might progress through these different levels of involvement. It's just kind of carrying on this very kind of open, supportive role. So I sort of shadowed the board when I was the first board, when it was the community company was first incorporated. I sort of joined when I was 15, before I could legally join as a director, and shadowed to just get an idea of what it's like to be in a board meeting, and out of that develop stuff and sort of learn by doing in the same way that you would in the community. And it's a great way to work because it invites the kind of ingenuity which we have within the communities, and it supports people to develop their confidence and their skills into another avenue outside of the projects they might be working in the school. something which I think is fairly unique to our approach is the fact that we've been successful to establish ourselves within schools, despite the fact that we're not results led, and we can't necessarily. I might be able to beat that. We're not necessarily results led.
Yeah, is that a sperm?
Yeah. I showed this to Lauren earlier.
My giraffe is excited.
I've got two of these. The other one's black.
Only two.
I actually have quite a few toys to hand. Yeah. So you've frozen with the giraffe in the air. I don't know if you can hear me right now. Hello?
I hear you.
Oh, you can hear me. Okay, cool. You've just frozen with the giraffe in the air currently.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that's a nice view.
Oh, wow.
No, you're back. Could you hear me? Everything I was saying, or did I cut out for a second?
The last I heard was you've got two sperm.
Okay. So yeah, because we have managed to kind of get a foothold within school communities, it's allowed the structure to kind of have a physical base, and because we treat schools as communities and kind of explore that context for it, it means that people can reflect on the community aspect of schools and the environment and the way that they interact with it and what it means to them and all the value and stuff. So it means that all of the aspects of the process have a readily available environment to make use of, and so it means that there's it can establish a structure quite quickly and very effectively, in that people can there's already ways that people interact with their community, and ways that different groups within the school will use the facilities and the environment, so that if the project gets up and going, then it can establish that, and as their presence develops. And having this kind of physical base is really powerful in the way that once a community is established, they can go forwards and they can set up with these projects and really make a tangible difference to their surroundings. And from that point on, it becomes very much embedded in the culture, and it's a very transformative process whereby the relationships and whether people value their contribution and the different opportunities that arise out of it can really become established projects. And I think that's I think that's something which Lantern has. That's a large part of where our success comes from, in the fact that there's about 150 schools now that have their own Lantern communities, and being able to work in that context and establish yourself there, we're now able to work in other places. So I think I mentioned it to you briefly, but we're in Campbell communities. There's 9 different communities. I think most of them are in the south. I think it's furthest north, anyway. And the way that has been taken up within their communities is really amazing. In that, again, it's a sort of demographic which is typically undervalued, and they don't get much credence paid to their skills. So once you give people the opportunity to take ownership of their environment and their surroundings and direct things themselves, just incredible stuff comes out of it that no one could ever predict. And then in the local authority context, which is like a bigger task because we're present in sort of Bath and North East Somerset to a degree, but we're used officially within Cornwall to deliver young people's services, which is a huge task. So that's developing, but there's some cool stuff coming out of that. So yeah, having this adaptable, non-prescriptive model means that it can expand out into these different areas. And it's been, like I say, because it has a physical basis in the communities, it's a way to kind of change stuff that's already in existence and reveal these different connections and opportunities. It can become embedded and established very effectively. Something which has become apparent despite this level of involvement and development over the years is that we haven't been very good at communicating the work that goes on and facilitating communication between the communities. So they remain quite insular in their work, despite the fact that independently they end up addressing quite similar issues. So equality, disability support, environment, transport, food are all common topics which people will self-elect to form teams around. But that happens independently. We haven't really managed to keep a repository of stuff online or whatever it might be so that people could communicate and share learning. And
it would help to have something like what Change the Future is planning to build. So we want to make this web platform that's not a million miles away from Represent. Have you seen this? Did we look at this together? Represent.cc. But so it would be slightly more advanced. Even in the short term, even the minimum viable products would be quite a lot more advanced in that it would allow kind of where my initial passion personally came from in setting up something like Change the Future was actually initially to implement in schools, and then it kind of grew into a wider sort of interest out of education as it became obviously a sort of facilitation process and toolkit for collaborative change making, you know, in all sorts of communities, and actually even in communities that you know, haven't even necessarily granted their permission. I think that's a totally different ball game, but really interesting. So, for example, like in McDonald's, you might be able to propose something you'd like to change in McDonald's, like the uniforms are uncomfortable, and you might have even told your line manager, or they might have told their boss or whatever, and it just got like a resounding no from some anonymous superior person. But enough people, you know, you've got a huge workforce of people who all really want a change to the uniform, and then that just becomes blindingly apparent, and it's public and on the internet. You know, it becomes increasingly more embarrassing, especially as Change the Future's legitimacy, you know, gains more recognition and legitimacy. You know, it becomes apparent that there's a disgraceful number of employees, all who have got a very reasonable request that's just being ignored. And yeah, anyway, so but the initial interest came out of in schools. You know, like so many schools struggle with the same things, obviously. Bullying. Some schools actually tackled bullying. But yeah, like you say, like it can be such a shame and seem, I suppose, quite difficult for one community, such as a school, to learn from another school and what they've done that worked. So yeah, there's been a lot of thinking behind the design of Change the Future to enable how that would work, using different categories and tags, and shining a spotlight on proposals that have been really successful. So there's a process of evaluation, like did that idea work? Did this like Roots of Empathy program in our secondary school actually help with bullying? Yes, it definitely did. How can we share this with other schools?
I've just I've been in. Have you heard of Hilo by any chance? It's not.
Yes, I have. Yeah, it was. They haven't let me in yet. I think I scheduled to have a video call with them. Do you want to join us?
Yeah, that would be cool. I've emailed. I got a reply. What's his? I can't remember his name. Edward West. I got a reply from him, and he has basically said that he'd be interested in Learn to Lead, establishing a high-low community. I've got to work out what exactly that would look like, because there's various different groups, like whether we were going to work with staff within Learn to Lead, or whether we were going to gather a sort of student group or something, because also there's obviously, if you're going to go via the school officially, there will be difficulties in kind of online privacy and stewardship and all of that fun stuff. But I'm interested to try it out as a tool to coordinate communication. And I mean, we can't really, it's becoming more and more important that we can't really wait any longer to get this communication up and running. And it feels like the more time we spend without having something in place, we're kind of losing out on the experience. And a wider ambition of this, I think, is that we can offer this experience to people within a school community, and it can lead to people kind of forming ideas about what they want to pursue in later life, what they might want to carry on studying or pursue as a career or something. But they're basically left to go out on their own, and it would be good to have at least a place for discussion. So if people want to organise their own things, whatever that would be, again, it's not something that I could predict, and I think would be contradictory to try and identify too far. But yeah, I'm something like Hilo maybe, although I haven't actually seen it in action. I've just seen that sort of holding page. Would be interesting. And with networks like Change the Future, then it seems perfectly logical if it could be kind of a coordinated effort. And maybe it would make more sense to try and connect between different organisations and their respective communities in some sense, rather than to try sort of tentatively. But I'm thinking aloud here. Yeah. Did you have you got any thoughts on that? Like, what was your interest in
thoughts on how to kind of make the work that Learn to Lead does more scalable and interoperational, community to community? You mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is just exactly what I would love to help build, and what I spend a lot of time researching. So yeah. I mean, Represent is surely one of the most powerful tools for doing something like that, I think. They've just recently, just a few hours ago, set up a group for Change the Future, and they would set one up for Learn to Lead as well, I'm sure. If you look in the groups here, you'll see they've got about 10, and one of them is Represent itself, which means that anyone is invited to create new proposals, which they call questions, but I call them proposals. I mean, you can have questions that are not proposing something, but I think if it's a tool designed, optimized for change making, then I think I personally think proposal is the most powerful word for creating change directly, although questioning is an essential part of that process. But anyway, yeah, I just love that they use their own tool on themselves. So there's a Represent group where you can vote on ideas for how to improve Represent itself. And I think that's just essential, you know, like Lumio. I haven't seen Lumio use Lumio to develop Lumio, but certainly What Leads To uses What Leads To improve What Leads To. So yeah, but yeah, I don't know. So we've got the wall of ideas packed up in the garage, and it's got about 300-400 ideas from people across Brighton about how to improve the city. And would be so nice to digitize those. We've looked at, kind of played a little bit with doing it on Pinterest and stuff like this, but Pinterest doesn't have really any actual voting tools, and we were just using comments to kind of do all of the benefits, concerns, case studies, you know, all those sorts of other buttons that it obviously isn't designed to support. So yeah, I don't think there is anything I know of that is optimized for the purpose you're talking of, but you know, that's exactly why Change the Future is trying to build it right now. And we've got a techie person or two or three or four in place actually. I think if we had any kind of money coming in to Change the Future at all, you know, like not even necessarily salaries, you know, just like enough money to just justify people spending significant amounts of time on the project, just enabling them to. Because I definitely know some people who really, you know, like working on projects like this is where their heart is set, but they're just and they have so much to give, but they just don't have a kind of 9-to-5 job that's like paying for their rent, and even though their living costs are so small. So a really high priority for me is getting money in to Change the Future, just like 200 quid a month for core team members, 100 quid a month for senior members, and junior members maybe 50 quid a month, reflecting like the different amount of hours that they're putting in every week. So, you know, negligible amounts of money, but I just think that would really help. So I'm exploring different funding application options and stuff at the moment.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it'd be really interesting to explore doing some kind of funding application with another organisation, like possibly Learn to Lead. Because I think we've got two really different skill sets, and I think a lot of projects have, you know, they've invested themselves in different sort of areas and can potentially complement each other really nicely. And like, for example, there's a lot of EU funding, like the have you seen the Horizon 2020 funding?
Yeah.
You know, this is a huge sum of money.
Yeah, I'm honestly thinking towards it, and there's another organisation which I think got their funding from it, which I've started sort of talking to recently, called Change 2020. But I haven't got onto the point of talking to them about that yet. But yeah, coordinating efforts around funding applications, I think, makes a lot of sense. I mean, it is a kind of perennial challenge in this sort of work. Like, my involvement with Learn to Lead is voluntary. I've been doing it for years, but it's always been voluntary. And unfortunately, it's the case across the board at times, which is patently unsustainable. But we've just progressed with work despite that, and kind of found ways around it. And with that in mind, I think coordinating efforts, if we're looking to develop tools and things, makes a lot of sense, so that we're not working on the same thing separately.
Yeah.
And I mean, for instance, Learn to Lead has a tool called the Sticky Wall, which is very kind of DIY, really. It's parachute fabric. It's covered in spray melt. And we have hexes, which are just hexagonal pieces of colour, which are actually made by a social enterprise set up through Learn to Lead at one of the Campbell communities, which is great because they make their own stuff and they sell it to different organisations and things, and we buy off them, and then we use it in our packs and stuff, and we conduct the process of trainings using the Sticky Wall, which there's nothing particularly remarkable about our version of it. It's kind of one of those common visual mapping things, and the fact that it tessellates is really useful. And then we just put it on.
What do you mean tessellate? How does it tessellate?
The hexagons, the hexagon pieces of paper tessellate together. So
because they can. Okay, yes, I see what you mean. Yeah.
So, like, for instance, like, we map to a community and people will start writing down what they identify in the community, and then you can start grouping them together to reveal the different assets that exist within the community, and people start thinking about it in different ways. And then people get enthusiastic about using it very quickly, and it invites people who might not be willing to raise their voice in a group discussion or something. It gives them a chance to do it. But I mean, that exists in lots of different iterations. And currently we are working with they've just renamed themselves to, I think they used to be called C Communications. I can't remember what they've changed their name to, but they have worked with us previously with campus communities they do branding and digital tools and digital strategy. So they're looking to make an app for the sticky wall that can be used within campus communities, so that members of the communities, when they're working with stuff, can then take it home and they can access it on their devices. And then it can work for people with differing abilities and people who either don't speak or aren't comfortable with written language. Then it can work with different tools, so they can use imagery to portray their thinking, this kind of stuff. So we're kind of using that as an opportunity to develop digital tools to accompany our process. And then if that was then going to be something which would get taken up in schools or encouraged to be taken up in other communities, then there's obvious benefits to that. But I'm aware that there's a lot of similar stuff happening around that, and that's possibly another area in which it would make sense to collaborate around stuff, rather than coming up with very similar tools that may end up competing in some way, or not necessarily competing, but sort of coincidentally depleting each other's resource or chance to strengthen all of that good outreach stuff. So yeah, again, I'm kind of thinking aloud to a degree, but it would really make sense to come up with some way to coordinate stuff. And also, I'm sure that this is an issue that you've had to face up to a lot of times when you're trying to communicate an approach which operates differently to the way that people might typically be used to. Then, and if it's not the kind of thing that kind of like raises employment or monetary value or just stuff necessarily, and communicating the value and the imperative to encourage this kind of stuff can be quite challenging in certain contexts. And if there was a kind of wider consensus around things, it would probably make it easier to conduct that discussion and to persuade people of the value of whatever approach people are involved with. So yeah, there's another reason to collaborate on stuff, I would think.
I felt like doing some typing. I made this.
Yeah. Oh, cool. So yeah, the Power of Youth link, which I think you sent me when you talked before, is that a way to coordinate these sorts of initiatives? I wasn't quite sure what it was, just looking at the site.
Yes, yeah. Power of Youth is yeah, it's quite a new project for me. I went to an event in the Asher Centre, which again has a lot of crossover, I think, with to lead, in the sense that I don't know if you know the Asher Centre. I'll give you a link to them. They run all kinds of amazing courses there. How old are you?
24.
You will, if it's there, you'll get free funding, like all your travel and the courses and everything is all funded, and it's residential for. They do incredible courses there, man. Like really beautiful things. I've been there twice. One was for conflict transformation. The other one was for social entrepreneurship, that I expected to be pretty similar to coactive and business linked trust and ones like this, but actually it was quite in another league. It was it really spent a lot of time exploring like emotional intelligence and social skills and really truly understanding yourself, and then working out from yourself to how you understand others and relate to other people, just on a really social human level. And then it was only really sort of the last couple of days that it really focused significantly on actual entrepreneurship directly, which I thought was kind of amazing, and it really stuck with me a lot. There's a lot of new ideas that were really useful for me. So anyway, one of the facilitators, who were two youngish women from South Africa, very inspiring to me. One of them works at Power of Youth, and so it just so turns out I'm going down in a couple of weeks to shoot a promotional film for them, which of course is, well, I think I stupidly just thought that goes without saying that I do promotional videos for social enterprises. So if that's a skill that's useful, it looks like Learn to Lead already have some pretty lovely films, but yeah, that's what I do. So I probably didn't. I haven't actually given you a link to my production.
Production, isn't it?
Yeah, I did. Okay, cool. Yeah. So.
I don't know whether you linked it to me, whether I found it. I think you did link it to me. But actually, that maybe slightly. Well, before I go off on tangent, actually, does Power of Youth look like maybe a sensible thing to bear in mind when thinking about coordinating efforts? Is that the kind of purpose it's supposed to see?
Yeah, it depends kind of like the format, I guess. I mean, just can I just pop in a quick question that relates to this, I guess, about you? Like, what you said you volunteer for Learn to Lead. Like, what another thing on the side? I know you're doing amazing, but do you have like a kind of bread and butter thing that's paying the bills while you're focusing on things you're more passionate about, or what's your setup?
I'm involved in a few things. I'm actually working out. I'm actually working out currently what to do in terms of paying the bills, because I'm not in London right now, which is kind of the case in point. And I've basically reached the point of thinking that I can't really justify living in London and the cost of it while I'm trying to do this stuff, because it's actually proving to be more of a barrier while I'm not really earning a regular wage with normal work. So currently I'm thinking of leaving my place in London and then coming back home for a bit in Somerset, which is where I am now, and working from here and doing stuff with our monastery and traveling to get involved in different stuff. There's one project I'm involved in which should be managing to pay a regular wage, which is not much, but it would be enough to support other work. But we're still working out the investment paper, so that's kind of in arrears. The idea for Amazings, which got some grant funding, which has supported kind of development and scoping around that, is that it would work both as kind of a public-facing repository of articles and tools and links to stuff that can be attractive and engaging to a wide audience, and particularly sort of people like young people and those kind of things, or people who are disengaged with issues around sustainability, and to operate as a agency alongside that. So I've spoken to some people, mainly in sort of in passing and about with sort of creative skills, about being able to contribute to that, which is kind of scoping out potential leads. So hopefully that will be something which can be made into a kind of way of generating some income. I'm I'm experienced enough to know not to expect to rely on that.
I lost you for about 15 seconds.
Okay. What was the last thing you heard? Sorry?
About Amazing, you saying that you had some grant funding for that was leading you somewhere good for developing that.
Yeah. So it's supported the exploration around establishing a project, which is going on now, and I'm seeing how that can work in tandem with our monastery. I'm going out to Greece in a week to get involved with some stuff over there and to meet more of the people in person and kind of try and work out what the working relationship, if any, could be around the Amazing project. But basically, the task for it is to explore, is to kind of work out more explicitly how creative skills can be a constitutive part of social work as opposed to just the service industry, if that makes sense. So things like visual communication, which typically the full extent of its value will be limited to large-scale commercial ventures who can afford to employ sort of brand strategists, experienced agencies, and then come up with a whole campaign and visual identity and all of this stuff. If you can use that towards causes and initiatives with real value, and find ways to do something like produce a promotional animation, for instance, for an organization without having to worry about them finding however much money to pay for it. So yeah, when I saw, yep.
What are you doing tomorrow?
What's that?
What are you doing tomorrow?
I have got a hangout with the development initiative thing that I'm involved with, and I'm writing an article and working with Lauren, I think. But I'll be here on my laptop.
In Somerset?
Yes.
I'm having a meeting in London with a cool project that is building a tool for co-creating visions called What Leads To.
Oh, right, yeah. Yeah.
You know of them?
Purely because I typed it in when you mentioned it. So I've got this set up here.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm going to meet them. I just thought it could be a nice opportunity for us to get together and chat, because I feel like there's like, I phase in and out when chatting to you on here, I think, because the sound quality is sort of, it works, but it's sort of, I don't know, it's not amazing quality. It sounds a little bit like you're in a breeze the whole time. And
yeah.
I don't know, after like sort of 45 minutes, it just sort of feels a bit like I don't feel like I'm giving you the attention and focus that I know I could if it was sort of in person, and it just feels like quite important stuff. I feel like there's a lot I'm basically really enjoying chatting about. But yeah, I just thought if you London feels slightly more of an achievable place for me compared to Brighton. Although, of course, as I think I said, you're incredibly welcome to Brighton anytime as well. But yeah,
well,
also maybe push me your phone number as well if you want, and we can really be a lot if you want to. I'll type my number in the thing here.
There's mine. Yeah, I mean, it's easy for me to get down to Brighton. There's actually a coach stop next to my flat, which takes me right down there, so that would be.
Oh man, swing by. I live in a really lovely house with some really nice people, and yeah. Have you been to Brighton before?
Yeah, I've been down. I've been down quite a lot. I've got. It's actually one of the typical destinations for people from Somerset. Like
Oh really?
a good half of the people I went to college with live in Brighton now.
Oh wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice.
We know more people here than I do.
Yeah, I'm kind of like my plan at the moment is to kind of sever my ties to London and all of the annoying stuff that goes with that, and then work out where I'm gonna travel between, or maybe end up basing myself after that. And I had thought of Brighton. It's like I like it there, and it's pretty friendly. There's cool stuff going on, and obviously it's close enough to London if I needed to go down there. But yeah, like you say as well, I struggled to kind of get fully across via, so it would be good to meet up properly. I'm down. I get back into London on Friday, but it'll probably have to be till when I'm back from Greece to meet up. I get back on the 17th. But yeah, so for the time being, I mean, we've managed to identify a few things, and if you're talking to what leads to Hilo and stuff, should we keep in contact about that sort of thing? And if I find out more about the Learn to Lead Sticky Wall app, for instance, or if we've got events or something that you could maybe come along to, should I link you into that sort of stuff?
Yes, definitely.
Maybe.
What did you think about if you go into a school, for example, with Learn to Lead? How useful, if at all, do you feel like it would be to use Represent to create a group for that school, like King Edward Secondary School, and then the ideas that people have come up with, they can at the end of the workshop, maybe you or someone or whoever's facilitating or whatever, the kids themselves maybe can propose the ideas again digitally in that group, and you can vote on each other's ideas. You can put your reasons for your vote, similar to Change the Future. You can even put ideas that have come out of voting and discussing somebody's idea.
All of this kind of stuff, I think, is useful for it, and it's analogous to the stuff that we already do. The only real thing to work out is the way that Learn to Lead has a very simple, established structure for doing all of that in a meeting, and being able to transfer that without neglecting any part of the process. I think it's a good start.
You would want to find a way that, because find some way of allowing the best of those ideas that materialize from these workshops to carry outside of that school, outside of that community, and inspire people beyond the walls of that school.
Yeah.
Do you?
It's kind of, well, before a lot of this stuff, it would be a task to actually find out all of the different stuff that's going on, because within the school here in my hometown where it started off, there's something like 30 or more teams, all working on distinct projects, and some of those teams have now probably been around for close to 10 years. So they've gone through all sorts of different versions of projects and things, involved into different things, and some of it's developed into relationships with local businesses or with large organisations and all this kind of stuff. And so being able to find out what everybody is doing in all of their communities would be helpful, and then probably organising stuff under topics, because people working within food, for instance, and have built allotments or started coming up with lesson plans for biology lessons, or can go out and do things growing, all this kind of stuff. Being able to facilitate the discussion between them, I think, would be one of the main initial tasks in bringing stuff online, because most people have projects that are ongoing and sort of up and running, and they're at the stage where they have worked out ways to incorporate new members. If, for instance, younger students want to get involved, and then older students who are leaving will train them up and hand over responsibilities and this kind of thing. So getting all of that online and reflecting the action that's taking place, as opposed to necessarily devising what the activities are going to be, because there's stuff already going on. So yeah, this is stuff that I'm sort of trying to think through currently.
So maybe have a sort of space where you can watch a short film about projects that have been acted on, that began as ideas in Learn to Lead workshops and then have actually carried through to real life and are continuing on now.
Yeah, like there's actually one of the teams, the equalities team at one of our schools, has been commissioned by Stonewall to come up with a film that would be sent around schools, which was initially they wanted them to go on tour basically and go around and give talks, but they're doing their A-levels, so they're making a film that would be brought round, and that came up then publicising the work that they were doing, which is incredible. And then they spoke at the Stonewall conference, which I think is amazing in itself, because there were like 15, 16 speaking to over 1,000 people about the incredible work that they've done. But yeah, like I say, the ironic thing is that other schools within the Learn to Lead community wouldn't actually be aware of that unless they happen to read the newsletter that we send out once a month, which very few people seem to actually read. So yeah, transferring the way the organisation and the structure and the whole way that stuff works and people can progress with their own ideas to online, so that they can be in a position to develop stuff rather than it would probably be me personally facilitating things, would be the most productive thing to do. But I'm kind of unaware of what the best approach to that would be. But it sounds as though a lot of the stuff which you're involved with and stuff which you're working on personally is very applicable to that. So, yeah. I'm trying to think of actions now.
How about we, because I need to prep for a Change the Future event that's happening in a couple of hours now, which is an introduction to Change the Future and questioning our vision. So I need to crack on with that. But should we continue on that Google Doc and like just change it, delete it, edit it, do whatever you want to do to it until it makes sense, looks interesting. The ultimate point of it is the only thing that is important, I think, which is it's just for us to explore more detailed ideas of what we can do for each other or with each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to aim to bosh out at least like 3 tangible ideas, even if they're really rough, naive ideas. Just bash out a couple of thoughts that might lead to something more sensible.
Yeah. Cool. Well, yeah, I'll write down a few things. Try and take this rambling into writing.
Yeah, and have a look in your diary and see when you want to come down to Brighton.
Yeah, for sure. I'll write it in my diary now. Yeah, that sounds great. And these couple of weeks, quite busy, so after I've spent time working on stuff, I should maybe have some more obvious opportunities to work on stuff together. So yeah.
Yeah, cool, man. Yeah, sweet. We'll work it out. We'll do something. We've come this far. Nice. Cool, man. All right, I'll put one away.
Cool.
Real nice chatting to you.
Have a fun time at the event and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cool.
Thanks a lot, mate. All the best.
Yeah.
Cheers.